I've been thinking a lot about socialism and communism lately.
Oh, yeah? What's brought that on?
Well, it's fascinating how, in theory, these systems promise so much, but in practice, they often turn out differently.
Right.
The gap between the ideal and the reality is really something.
Yeah, that's true. So, what's the main difference between socialism and communism?
So, socialism is where the government or community controls key industries but
Hmm.
allows some private ownership. But communism aims for a classless, stateless society with no private property at all.
So, socialism allows for some capitalism?
Exactly. It's like a middle ground. You have
Yeah.
elements of government control and private enterprise coexisting.
And what are the supposed benefits of socialism in theory?
Well, the key goals are to reduce wealth inequality, provide social welfare programs, and prevent exploitation by large corporations. It's about
Right.
promoting economic fairness.
But in practice, does it always work that way?
Not always. High taxes can discourage entrepreneurship, and government control might lead to inefficiency and bureaucracy.
Yeah,
Sometimes socialist states drift toward authoritarianism.
that's problematic. What about communism's theory?
Communism seeks a classless society, no social or economic hierarchies.
Hmm.
The government owns all means of production. There's no private property.
So, everyone is equal, supposedly?
Exactly. In theory, there's no wealth inequality, no unemployment. Everyone has a job assigned by the government, and basic needs are provided.
But historically, hasn't that led to issues?
Yes, in practice, central planning often leads to inefficiency and shortages.
Right.
Plus, citizens lose freedoms, and centralized power can result in dictatorships.
Like in the Soviet Union and Maoist China?
Exactly. The Soviet Union faced stagnation and eventually collapsed.
Yeah.
Maoist China's policies led to disasters like the Great Leap Forward famine.
But aren't there modern examples where communism has adapted?
Well, countries like China and Vietnam have introduced market reforms.
Hmm.
China calls it socialism with Chinese characteristics, blending capitalism with state control.
So they're not pure communist states anymore?
Exactly, they've adapted to include elements of capitalism to boost their economies.
What about socialist countries? Any success stories?
Definitely, Scandinavian countries like Sweden, Norway, Denmark have strong welfare
Right.
systems and market economies. They manage to balance social programs with economic growth.
But isn't that high taxation discouraging for businesses?
Well, some argue it can be, but these countries often rank high in innovation and entrepreneurship. So
Interesting.
perhaps other factors offset the tax burden.
I'm not so sure. I mean, high taxes might still be a barrier for some entrepreneurs.
That's a fair point. There's
Yeah.
definitely a debate on how taxation affects business growth. The key might be how the tax revenue is invested back into society.
True. If the funds support education and infrastructure, that could benefit businesses in the long run.
Exactly. It's like an investment back into the economy,
Right.
but it's a complex issue for sure.
So back to myths. People often think socialism and communism are the same.
Yes, that's a common misconception.
Hmm.
Socialism allows some private ownership while communism doesn't.
And the idea that socialist countries always fail isn't accurate either.
Exactly. Many countries successfully combine socialism and capitalism. So it's
Yeah.
not a one size fits all scenario.
But do you think pure communism could ever work? Or is it fundamentally flawed?
That's a tough question. I think
Yeah.
human nature makes pure communism difficult to achieve. Incentives matter.
So perhaps a system that balances incentives with social welfare is more practical?
Exactly. A mix of market economy and social policies seems to work best.
Right.
It leverages the strengths of both systems.
But even then, challenges remain. Corruption, inequality, inefficiency, they can exist in any system.
Absolutely. No system is perfect. It's about
Yeah.
continuous improvement and adapting to change.
Well, this has been a great discussion. I've learned a lot.
Me too. Always good to unpack these complex topics. Let's keep the
Definitely.
conversation going.
For sure. Until next time.